Welcome back, guys. We are here for our very final set review for the Dominaria United Limited review, where Yanks and I go over every single card on a scale of 1 to 5 in regards to limited only. So, Yanks, welcome back.
Good to be back for the last one of these for this set.
I know. I'm glad. My voice is starting to fail, so if I sound a little raspy, please forgive me. So let's go ahead and jump into the Automatic Librarian. 3 mana for a 3/2 that when this enters the battlefield, scry 2. That is kind of the definition of our bare minimum playable card. A 3/2 for 3 is very playable as a curve filler, and it does a little something. Doesn't need to be super impactful. We're pretty happy to put that in our deck. And this is super easy to cast, given that it's just colorless. What do you think in rating-wise?
Yeah, I think a lot of times this would be a 2. I think I have this as a 2/5 for a couple reasons. Does feel like you're going to be playing 3 colors a lot in this format, so having something that you can cast if you're struggling with mana with your colors is nice. And Scry 2 is good, and the 3 power is nice for Enlist as well.
Yep, I agree with that. It trades well for colorless, and I think Scry 2 is kind of on that high end of those base abilities that we would expect to see. Usually they're more useless than Scry 2, and given that it's super easy to play, given the colorless, I think I'm happy to give this that half-point boost. Plus it has pretty sweet flavor text, enforcing absolute quiet with extreme prejudice. This seems pretty sweet.
Yeah, I like this card.
All right, your turn.
All right, next up we have Golden Argosy. It's a 4-mana legendary vehicle. First vehicle we've seen in this set. It's a 3/6 when it's a creature. Whenever it attacks, exile each creature that crewed it this turn. Return them to the battlefield tapped under their owner's control at the beginning of the next end step. It has crew 1. So crew 1 is great. You can attack fairly safely with this card because it's got 6 toughness.
Mm-hmm.
And it lets you re-trigger any ETB effects from creatures that tap it, like our Librarian.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting, unlike the one from Capenna where you had the choice to bring it back to your hand. This one doesn't give you a choice, but it's really cool with a lot of the maybe some of the lockdown spells you can get your creatures out of, which is pretty cool. But I think for the most part I agree this is like an ETB re-trigger. I'm trying to think if there's anything that would punish us for having to flicker them, and I can't really think of much.
Maybe some things like the spells that cost less to cast for each creature you control. If you want to, you can't play those post-combat, maybe something like that.
Yeah, maybe. For the most part, it feels pretty safe to do so, and I think this is fine. So what are we thinking rating-wise?
I think it's probably a 3 that can play up depending on the quantity and quality of your ETB effects.
I like that rating. It's a solid sized body and it's got a cheap crew. And again, the quality of the ETB will give this a really nice ceiling should you have the synergy to get there. So I like that rating of a 3.
I will say one thing that hurts this card is a lot of the creatures' ETB effects in this set are if they were kicked. So when they come back, they will not be considered having been kicked, even if they were initially.
Makes sense. All right, here's our first equipment. The Hero's Heirloom, 2 mana for an artifact equipment. Equipped creature gets... Sorry, I'm losing my voice. +2/+1. As long as an equipped creature is legendary, it has trample and haste as well, and equipped for 2. The cost of it's not too bad. The equip cost isn't too bad. There's plenty of legendaries. I could see this being a 23rd playable card, but I'm not in love with it.
I actually think this card is pretty decent. Remember the original Dominaria you had was like Short Sword, which was cheaper, and cheaper equipped but it was only +1/+1, and it didn't have the legendary bonus, and that bonus is going to be very relevant in this set.
I agree with that.
I'm not over the moon to play this card, but
No.
I can see finding a slot for it, especially in some of your creature-heavy decks.
Absolutely. But is it in that 23rd playable you found a slot 2 rating, or do you have it higher?
I have it a little higher because I think it plays really well, particularly in Selesnya. You've got some of those that green-white, the Queen, that can be pretty large, but also just gets chumped all day, but now it gets trample.
Yeah.
So I think it's got some nice cards to work with in that color pair in particular.
Trample is really nice for some of these big legendary creatures, and there's no shortage of them with at least, I think we counted 46 before the last day of spoilers, so I'm guessing ballparking around 50 legendary creatures in the set. That's a lot.
Yeah.
All right. Inscribed Tablet, 1 mana for an artifact. Pay 1, tap, and sacrifice it. Reveal the top 5 cards of your library. Put a land card from among them into your hand. Put the rest in the bottom in a random order. If you didn't put a card in your hand this way, draw a card. It says reveal the top 5 cards, put a land. It doesn't say you may put a land, so you can't choose to draw if you prefer, right? Is that the way I'm reading that?
Correct. That's why you have to reveal them, because otherwise you could just fail to find.
Yep. I mean, this card is okay. It's nice that it has a backup for fail to find. It's going to be a good enabler for domain decks.
Yeah, this is just weird. For something like this, the reason I'm putting it in my deck is to be reliably get the land I need, and this doesn't. It doesn't fail, but it doesn't do what you're putting it in there to do all the time.
I mean, we see, you're right. Sometimes it's you pay 1, you search for the land that you're looking for, and that's great. But it also kind of gives you 5 cards is deep enough to where in a large domain deck, you're likely 4 colors plus. You're going to find something. It might be not the thing that you needed necessarily, but it'll probably be a fresh land that you could use. And then the nice thing is it has that backup clause. I'm not saying it's good, but I'm saying it still kind of covers all of those bases. A little give and take.
Yeah, the problem is if it doesn't find the land I need, I'd rather it not find anything at all and just let me draw a random card.
Agreed. But sometimes you might just miss and you get to draw the card, which is nice.
Yeah.
And I could see myself drawing it late and hoping that I miss, right? So you can draw.
Yeah.
But with other cards that always search out a land, you just don't have that option.
True.
So it's kind of fine.
Yeah, I always find these type of cards to be borderline playable to begin with. Now, granted, if you're in that...
Agreed.
If you're in a 4 or 5 color deck, you're more likely to play these type of cards. So...
This is a 1/5 for me.
Yeah, I think that's about right.
All right, we have a Codex. I remember the last one was kind of weird. 5 mana for a artifact with domain. 5 mana and tap, draw a card. This ability costs 1 less to cast for each basic land. So it's automatically going to only cost 3, basically, right? 3 to draw a card in any deck. How happy are we with that?
I think that's okay. There are decks that want this. Codex in Magic means draw a card. Kind of like Spectre means if you take damage from it, you discard. So anytime you see a Codex, you're going to have some sort of draw card ability. But yeah, obviously I'm happier playing this in a domain deck where I can at least get it down, or a deck where I can at least reliably get it down to 2 mana. But at that point, it's actively good.
Yeah.
And otherwise, I think it's just a decent mana sink.
Yeah, I like it well enough. I mean, I kind of need to have a little bit of a slow controlier deck. This will get cut in most of my creature-based decks. And I'm hoping I can find just more consistent land draw, card draw that doesn't make me do nothing for 5 mana for 1 turn. But this is probably a 2/5 for me.
Yeah, I think we'll have to see just how fast this format is. But it is nice that in the domain deck, it'll help replace the card disadvantage that you probably use spending cards on fixing your mana.
Yes, that is very true. Kyrens Silex. We have a 3 mana legendary artifact that says it enters the battlefield tapped. Players can't pay life to cast spells or activate abilities that aren't mana abilities. Pay X and tap, sacrifice this, destroy each non-land permanent with mana value X or less. Activate as a sorcery. That's an interesting one.
Yeah, it's kind of a cross between a Nevinyrral's Disc and a Pernicious Deed. Fixed Pernicious Deed, so it hits Planeswalkers, unlike the old one. This is just kind of a board wrath.
A slowish board wrath. You have to play it, and then you have to get enough mana to kill all their stuff. It does mean in your green decks, it would be pretty cute. You might get to keep a thing, right? You could possibly get your big dumb green idiot to survive the wrath and then still be massively ahead. But it also has the same downside in that your opponent might be the tall one, and you might not be able to get enough mana to kill their important creatures. So it's a little slow, but I think it's fine.
Yeah, it's going to be nice against the white decks with the since all the enchantment based removal exiles in this format. It's not like pacifism effects, so you'll get to destroy all those and get your creatures back. So you'll have a board presence.
Yeah, I like that. So rating wise, I'm thinking because it's so slow, I think it's like a 3.5.
Yeah, I think I've got it at a 3.5.
I can get on board with that. Meteorite, I believe this is just a straight reprint. 5 mana. When Meteorite enters the battlefield, deal 2 damage to any target. You could tap to add 1 mana of any color. Yeah, this was a reprint. This was... I remember it was actually a little annoying because like the 2 damage actually hit a lot of things, and I think it will in this format too, but I don't know, at 5 mana I don't necessarily want to be playing rocks. But because it's got a shock attached to it, it's not the worst.
Yeah, I think we've also seen the quality of removal and quantity of removal get better since last time this was printed.
Yes.
So you were happier to you were more likely to have decks where you just didn't have removal and you just played this kind of out of desperation. So I don't think you're going to see this played very often.
I agree. Yeah, if you need the mana at turn 5, we've got some other issues. I think you could be getting mana ramp and spending those slots in a better way. So I'm going to give this a 1.5.
Yeah, I think if you're in the 5-color deck, there's a chance you play it, but otherwise you're probably never putting it into your deck.
Absolutely. 5-color will be probably one of the only considerations for that. All right, Relic of Legends, 3 mana. You can tap, add a mana of any color. Tap an untapped legendary creature you control, add 1 mana of any color. Okay, so it kind of turns your legendaries into mana rocks as well, in addition to being a pretty solid mana rock itself. Yeah, that's neat. 5-color decks will love this. Holy smokes. This is the domain dream.
For sure, and this is like a cool throwback to Coalition Relic. It even looks the same with the 5 colors and the Coalition symbol. Which was one of the better mana rocks ever printed. The early cube pick. This is far better than Meteorite that we just saw.
Yeah, I will say not every deck will want this, but as far as mana rocks go, the decks that do want this one is fantastic. Unconditional any color, lets you ramp in a big way with your other legendary creatures, which there are plenty. You will have some in every deck, just incidentally. Rating-wise, if you are more than 2 colors, I would say this is a solid include.
Yes, yeah, any deck that's more than 2 colors is going to want it. And even some 2-color decks that might be going kind of tall might want this.
What do you like it for score?
It's as good of a mana rock as it is. It's still a mana rock, so it's not hugely impactful. So it's like a 2.5.
I agree. Spot on. All right, Salvaged Mana Worker, 2 mana for a 1/2. Pay 1, add 1 mana of any color, activate only once each turn. So it just filters, and it's just a curve filler. A 2 mana 1/3 is exactly what I would expect. And it filters a little bit. We see this on a lot of things. We usually keep this right at the filler range. So this is a 2 for me.
Yeah, agreed. Bad fixing, but sometimes that's what you need.
Shield Wall Sentinel, 4 mana for a Defender 1/3. This says whenever this enters the battlefield, you may search your library for a creature card with Defender, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle. This will be probably a staple in the Defender deck, which is going to be kind of a thing.
Yeah, you're not playing it. Certainly not playing it anywhere else. But in that deck, you're going to want a couple of these.
It searches for your payoff defender in addition to just finding you more defenders to keep fueling your payoffs. So I'm super into this. I mean, it's a 1 in most decks, and it's like a 3 in the defender deck.
Yep, sounds exactly right.
Timeless Lotus, 5 mana. Timeless Lotus enters the battlefield tapped, and you can tap it for Wooburg. I'm not really interested in this for limited.
No, you come back to Dominaria, we get some sort of Lotus. So.
Yep. This is, some Golos EDH nonsense that we don't have to really worry about. So we're going to call that a 1.
Yep.
I guess there's a domain deck I'm running this in, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you're considering playing Meteorite, you'll play this.
If you're 5 colors and you're just like, I want to make sure I can cast all my stuff, so this doesn't help you with the domain triggers themselves, but it does help make sure that you can always just cast all your stuff. So I would probably play this in a domain deck. So I guess that was a little harsh of me, but it's still a 1 in the average deck.
Yeah.
Vanquisher's Axe, 1 mana for an equipped creature, gets +2/+0, equip 2. If you have a lot of tokens, it's a borderline playable, right?
Yeah, I'll stick this in my Boros decks. Probably nowhere else.
23rd playable. If you have room, sure. I usually would still prefer a baby removal spell or a combat trick of some sort, but this is fine. Makes all of your, if you have a lot of 1/1s, it makes them all threats, which is nice.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Walking Bulwark. We have a 1 mana 0/3 with Defender. You can pay 2 until end of turn. Target creature with Defender gains haste and can attack as though it didn't have Defender, and it assigns combat damage equal to its toughness rather than its power. Activate as a sorcery. Okay. This is kind of a sweet little payoff for your Defender decks as well. There's like, you'll have all these defenders, and you'll have like multiple things that kind of you can win with. You can draw this, you can draw the black one, you can draw the white one, and it's nice. They all kind of add up, and it makes all the other defenders kind of get on board with that win condition. They don't need to be very specific. So this one's great. I don't think it's good normally. It does say until end of turn, target creature with Defender, so it can do itself. It's a 1 mana 0/3 that can pay 2 and attack as a 3/3. That's okay. This one's probably, pretty solid. Certainly a sideboard card against aggressive decks. I like it.
Yeah, I think this card's pretty good. I think a lot of decks, well, your aggressive decks aren't playing this card, but I think some of your controlling decks will just put this in there as a speed bump and then an actual attacking threat later.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you think this is rating-wise?
I think it's like a 2. And then, obviously, in the Defender deck, it goes way up.
Okay, I'm down for that. Weatherlight Completed. We have a 2 mana 5/5 flying vehicle that says as long as Weatherlight has 4 or more Phyrexian counters on it, it's a Phyrexian creature in addition to its other types. Whenever a creature you control dies, put a Phyrexian counter on Weatherlight Completed, then draw a card if it has 7 or more Phyrexian counters on it. If it does not, scry one. So it's got to build up. There's no crew cost. You just have to play it, and then you have to wait until 4 things die.
Yeah, this is, I believe, the first vehicle we've ever seen without a crew ability.
Yep. That said, it's still pretty powerful.
I really like this card.
Yeah. You're gonna have 4 creatures in your deck plus this?
I'll find some little sacrifice fodder. I'll make sure they come on a spell so I don't have to play an actual creature card.
Okay, checks out. We're safe. Everybody, Yanks is not dying. Nobody has a gun to his head. It's fine.
No, actually, it's fine. I'll play the blue-white flyer and just make tokens with my spells.
Great. Or I was going to say the white defender, but you have to also play defender creatures, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this card is great. It's slow. And you might just top deck this late in the game on an empty board and feel real sad about it. But also you could just play this on 2 and then curve out, and eventually you just get to then kill them.
Yeah, you get to end up with the solid threat. You get, every time something dies, you get a scry, and then eventually you start drawing cards. So they do need to answer this eventually.
What is the rating we like?
It's tough because this is colorless, because obviously this is going to be really good in your Boros tokens deck.
I think it'll be good in anything white.
Yes, yeah.
Anything whites, because this will be just absolutely bonkers. If you happen to be in blue-black control, it's going to play like a 3. Because it'll sometimes just not get there, and then sometimes it'll get there, and it might be too late or whatever. Because you just have an empty board and they're a little too big. But in Boros, you're just going to be like, I'm going to play a spell, it's going to make 3 creatures, and I'm going to run them into you. What are you going to do about it? And it's just going to kill people very, very quickly. This will get turned on. So I'm going to give it kind of a 3, 4, 5? What do you think? 3 and then / 4.5?
Yeah, I think it's going to play closer to that 4/5 in more decks than the other.
I totally agree. Our last colorless card, guys, Karn Living Legacy, 4 mana for a 4 loyalty planeswalker, +1 each. Create a tapped Power Stone token, an artifact with tap, add a colorless mana. You can -1, pay any amount of mana, look at the top cards of your library, then pay any amount of mana, look at that many cards on the top of your library. Sorry, these are very small text. Then put one of those cards into your hand and the rest onto the bottom of your library in a random order. -7, you get an emblem with tap an untapped artifact you control. That emblem deals 1 damage to any target. That's cool. So you just make a bunch of stones, you make 3 of them, and then after that they just become little pew-pewers.
Yeah, I think this is one of the worst planeswalkers ever made.
I think it's okay-ish for limited, but I agree. It's kind of cheap. It makes ramp.
It doesn't make ramp. It only makes ramps to cast artifacts only.
To cast a mana artifact spell.
This mana can only be spent to play artifacts. Or I guess you can use it to activate abilities as well. But
the goal is to just do it 3 times and they just turn into little pingy rocks.
Yeah.
Which I like pingy rocks.
Yeah, but you just paid 4 mana to do nothing for 3 turns and hope it doesn't take any damage, otherwise you do nothing for another turn.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I mean, I guess you can use the Power Stones to help the -1. I don't know. I think this card is terrible.
I don't think it's good. Yeah, I think the stones are supposed to be good for the -1, which gets you card advantage, right? It's very slow. I agree. It's not very good. If you're behind, it's going to feel really bad. But, I don't know. I feel like I'm still probably playing it over some janky 4. My 4-drops tend to be, sometimes you just play a 4-mana 3/3 that does nothing. And I'm probably playing it in that spot.
Maybe. But the fact that we're even having that conversation means that this is a bad planeswalker.
Agreed. It is a very bad planeswalker. But, is it playable? Yeah, probably.
Yeah, I'll give it playable, barely.
Yeah, I'll give this a 3. No, I'm going to give it a 2.5.
I can't think of the last time, other than there were some weirdly tribal planeswalkers that clearly weren't meant for limited. Other than that, I can't think of any time I even would think about, I might cut this planeswalker.
Agreed.
Yeah, especially given that it's colorless and you can play it anywhere. This is like a 2.
Yeah, I'm gonna give it a 2.5. I'm gonna play it over the vanilla 3/3 for 4. But just barely. It's just just barely better than the crab.
That's probably right, but I also just am probably never going to end up taking this card because somebody will see Mythic Planeswalker and take it before I will.
Fair enough. All right, that is the end of the colorless spells. Let's go ahead and jump into the land cycles, and then we're almost done. We're almost home free, Yanks.
Yep, just a couple cycles and a couple utility lands to go.
Adarkar Wastes. We have a tap for colorless, or tap, add a white or blue, and it deals 1 damage to you. That's fine fixing.
Yeah, pain lands are back, including some of the ones that we haven't seen printed nearly as much, the friendly ones, which I think were last printed in 9th edition, the allied color ones.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little weird, we'll see as we go through this, that they only printed 6 of them in this set.
They did confirm that we were getting the other ones, right? Eventually, is the
Yeah, we're going to get the other 4. It's just kind of weird that why was it 6 and not 5?
I agree. It is strange, but here we are.
Yeah. So just doesn't really matter too much for limited because they're rares anyway. But some colors will have better fixing than others in this set.
I like these cards. Usually I give lands kind of like a 2.5. Fixing is fine, whatever. Like if you're in a 2-color deck, you don't have to have fixing. I take it way lower than most people. But this set has a lot of like green, blue casting costs. A lot of like 4 specific mana casting costs. So I think not only is this going to be a heavily splashable set, it is also a set where just your straight 2-color decks have very unique mana costs. Your 2 drops cost 1 and 1. Your 3 drops cost 1, 1 and 1. So, or 2 and 1, I should say. So yeah, make sure you guys are picking up a little extra. I would bump these up to a 3 just because I think fixing is going to be a lot more important.
Yeah, I think I can buy that. I don't necessarily think these are really any better than the common ones, though.
Agreed. I just mean in general, lands are going to be more important. Yes. So okay. I kind of rate them a little higher to go along with the fact that you actually just kind of need them. I will be the first person to just not draft duels in a 2-color deck because I think I just mulligan reasonably often and we just get to, 1 and 1. If my 1 or 2 spells that are double pipped take an extra few turns, I'm usually okay with that. But there are so many double pip cards in this set.
Yeah.
All right, Caves. Again, I'm going to give these a 3. This is the full cycle. We have another one here. This enters the battlefield tapped, and it can be tapped for blue or black. This is the same sort of situation that Yanks was saying, roughly the same. This one has to come into play tapped, but it doesn't then continue to ping you forever. So it's a bit of a wash, depending on how important your deck is. I think in Boros, Selesnya, I would rather have the rare tapped lands, and in most other decks, I would rather have the tapped ones, if that makes sense.
I think the more important thing here is that these count for domain while the others don't.
Yes, but in Boros, I'm not really trying to get to domain anyway.
Yeah,
so
in general.
In Boros and Selesnya, I want the untaps, and then in every other deck, including domain decks, I would rather have these.
Definitely in Boros. Selesnya probably, although there were some green domain cards that you might play in that deck. So,
but if you're like if you're
definitely Boros.
Saheeli, and what's not Saheeli? What was the card called again? Shauna. If you're the Shauna deck, I mean, like you're more interested in just having your stuff come out on turn.
Yeah.
I'm still going to give these cards a 3. Here is our first non-cycle, Crystal Grotto. When Crystal Grotto enters the battlefield, scry 1, it taps, adds a colorless. You can also pay 1, tap, and add a mana of any color. So it allows you to filter your lands as well, which is really nice in heavy splash domain decks as well. It doesn't count as a basic land type, but it is going to just help smooth out your mana base so that way you can actually just cast your spells, which sometimes on turn 3 and 4 is just the most important thing for you to be doing.
Yeah, I think this is worse than the other ones we've seen because I think I only want this in like the 5-color deck.
I agree.
In that deck, it's still only fine, not great. But
2?
I'll play it in that deck. Yeah, I think it's a 2.
All right. Our tapped Rakdos land, black and a red, same rating. Haunted Mire, our enters tapped Golgari land. I said it right. I always mix up Golgari and Gruel in my head and say the wrong one. So black and green. Tapped Azorius, white and blue. These are all, of course, going to be a 3. I think both land cycles are going to be a 3 for me. We have our Gruel. Pings if you want to tap it for a red or a green. Is it tapped land? So are the pain lands and the tapped lands opposite, or is there overlap?
Well, it's all 10. You have all 10 of the common lands.
Okay, so there is overlap on 6 of the pain lands.
Correct.
Okay, so those colors are extra fixable. It's important to probably note which ones those are. They are rare, so it's less common, but it is nice to know which colors have more fixing available to them, which is relevant.
Yes, by definition, the rares are less common.
Oh my gosh, thanks. Plaza of Heroes. Tap for a colorless, or tap add a mana of any color, spend this mana to cast a legendary spell. That's going to be fine. That's actually going to work a lot. You can tap add a mana of any color among legendary permanents you control. You can pay 3, tap, exile. This target legendary creature gains hexproof and indestructible until end of turn. Also kind of sweet.
Yeah, this card's pretty good. You want to have the right number of legendaries, but that doesn't seem to be very hard.
Yeah, if you're in a 2-color deck with 3 legendaries, I'm probably still just jamming this.
Maybe. Depends which one, again, right? If you don't want to be playing this potentially in Boros, because you might get stuck with this as an early land that doesn't tap for something you need. And
yeah, it depends how good the legendary creatures are at that point.
Yeah.
You know, the how good they are and how many you have will be relevant.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'm still fine with this. I think it's very playable. Probably hexproof and indestructible is sweet. And there's 50 legendaries or something like that in this set, so I would probably play this pretty highly in most decks. I'm going to give it a 3.
Yeah, I think it's a 3.
All right, Radiant Grove. We have our tapped Selesnya land, tapped Boros land, Pain Izzet land. Pretty art. I love that coral with the lava. That's sweet.
That is sweet, although the next one has my favorite art.
The next one is the Sulphurous Springs. Why is this your favorite?
So these lands were originally printed in Ice Age, and there was like a little demon in the springs, and it's been there for so long he's dead.
Oh, okay. This is that callback video we need to make, right? Where it shows the old and the new art. All right, we need to work on that video before I leave for my vacation. That's going to be a sweet video because would have never seen that. So I think people will really like it. This is a Rakdos Painland, another duplicate. Orzhov tapped land. There's so many lands in this. Yeah, Simic tapped. And we have another one, Thran Portal. Thran Portal enters the battlefield tapped unless you control 2 or fewer lands. So this is one of the fast lands. As it enters the battlefield, choose a basic land type. When Thran Portal is the chosen type in addition to its other types, mana abilities of Thran Portal cost 1 additional life to activate.
So this is a fast land version of a Mana Confluence that also counts as a basic land type.
Yes. Choose 8. So it is the land of your choice.
Yes.
And it costs 1 land. 1 mana to do a thing.
Yep, and I think the only reason they have that choose a type, obviously for domain, but in addition to its other types, because it's a gate for like commander and things like that.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, Mana Confluence is always, or City of Brass type cards are always good.
It's fine in a 3-color deck.
Yeah, this is a little worse, but it's still good.
Yeah, this is going to be good in the fixing decks, but like unlike the legendary card one where it's like, you know, also doing something else, it's fine. This is domain, right?
Yeah, and I misread this card. That's not right. It's not a Mana Confluence because whatever type you choose is all it can tap for.
Yes.
All right, so this is way worse.
So it's just a fixing card for whatever you happen to need at the time when it's drawn, which is nice. It's flexible because if you draw it in the mid game, you just pick whatever the third color is that you didn't see. If you draw it in the early game, you have one of this and one other color in a 3-color deck. You just pick whichever one you have the cards for in your hand at the time to help smooth. So it's very playable in a multicolor deck. I'm probably not really playing it in a 2-color deck. So split rating, it's probably like a 1-3, I guess. Kind of doubles as like a pain land, right?
Yeah, I think it's a 2.5 because it's worse than the pain lands.
It can't tap for colorless.
It can't tap for colorless, and it's just a single color. So yeah, it might be good at the time, but it could be worse later.
Yes, it could be worse later. But the other side of it too is that it can be any color, whereas the pain land is only the 2 of the 3. So I mean, give and take.
Yeah, it also enters tapped if it's played later in the game. Like, yeah, there's a give and take, but I think the take is a little worse here.
I can agree with that. We have our Gruel tapped land. Again, really, these are really pretty. I think the common cycle have great art. Yavimaya Coast, our pain land for Simic, and that's it.
We're done.
Let's take a quick look. I grabbed 5 of the basic lands here for us to take a look at, just to get a feel for Dominaria as a plane. And honestly, The lands are fantastic.
So this card, I will play this in most of my white decks.
Yes.
But it's just kind of borderline playable. It's kind of like a 2.
Well, white decks have creatures in them, Yanks. So, like, I could see how you would not be into that.
Yeah, now this next one, this is a 5. It's the best card in Magic. It lets you do all the fun things.
A lot of times we see islands that have like those really jagged peaks and spires. I'll say like this one is like a lot more unique than some of the other ones. I actually really like this.
Yeah, I'm looking at the card image gallery. The one right before this on there kind of has something like that.
Swamp, which has got like a big spoopy thing that's dead. A little spoopy. Mountain, looking at mountains. What is that in the background?
On top of the mountain, kind of?
Uh-huh.
That's like... almost looks like a cannon.
That's what I was thinking too, but then it kind of looked like a little... It just looks like a rock, like a Stonehenge-y type rock.
I wonder if that's something kind of like part of the mana rig.
Maybe.
From the... This is supposed to be Shiv.
The trees?
No, sorry, the red. The mountain. That mana rig.
Yeah, that's an iconic mountain we see a lot for sure. And then we just have some spoopy forests. So that's it. That's the whole feel for the entire set. That's also the end of our set review. Thank goodness I'm losing my voice. Yanks, thank you so much for joining us.
Anytime. Happy to do it.
All right, for those of you guys who are watching on the YouTube channel, don't forget, leave us a comment. Let me know what you thought of the Colorless, as well as Dominaria as a whole. Now that we are finally finished, I can't wait to jump into gameplay. I will have my first gameplay videos up for you guys on, I believe, the 31st, because I think the streamer event is on the 30th. So I should be able to get some actual gameplay of this up for you guys a few days before the release on the 1st. Thank you guys so very much for joining us for our set review. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I love you guys very much, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye, guys. I'd like to end this video with a special thank you to those of you guys who have signed up for my Patreon. Without my wonderful patrons, none of this content would be possible. If you'd like to support this content and get your name up on the Wall of Fame, you can sign up for our Patreon by using the link down below in the description. Another way you can support the channel is by using code MNG5 with Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find cool stuff in stock. They have everything you need for Magic, board games, and any of your other nerdy hobbies.